Hello and welcome to Wingot Plays Custom Monday. Today I'm going to be playing a bit of a game called Oxygen Not Included, which is sort of a colony management simulation game that I have played a fair bit of previously, but I have just recently picked up the Spaced Out DLC. And in fact, the last base that I had, I was going for an all achievements run. But then the base was broken by an update that was backported from Spaced Out to the core vanilla Oxygen Not Included experience, and as part of that, it would have taken far too much effort. I don't actually know if I could have quite salvaged that base. So it has been about a year since I last played it when that happened. I think that was around July last year. But we're starting up a new game of Oxygen Not Included, Spaced Out. I do think that this is the game that I will be playing once I finish Nomifactory as a replacement series, because it does have quite a sense of progression. I quite enjoy it, and it's just sort of a bit fun and cute while still having that sense of achievement and actually doing something, progressing towards something. I think I'll just be starting on just the generic starting planet, and so for at least for today. And there's various other asteroids that you can start on with different, effectively, difficulty built into that. There's oxygen requirements, of course, and various gas manipulation. There is the temperature management, and so some of the other planets are frozen to start with, or they're like they've got magma all over the place, and it's extremely hot, and that can become extremely difficult to work with. I do plan to make the series another attempt to go for every achievement, but at the same time I'll also be learning Spaced Out, so I don't actually know how challenging some of those are going to be with the changed difficulty that comes, with the changed progression that comes with Spaced Out. I pretty much always start with one researcher and one digger, because early on you want to be able to excavate a reasonable area, and you want to be able to get the various technologies unlocked reasonably quickly. And then the third guy basically tends to re-roll until we get something reasonable. Building and tidying actually would be a good combination. But the thing is, you see, so these are the skills that the dupes start with, but they also have these traits. And so here, the scientist, Lindsay, has increased germ resistance, but they also have a negative trait. This one has decreased husbandry. This one gets increased cuisine, but he has decreased husbandry. And then Rowan over here has an increased bladder, so he will need to run off to the toilet more often. While that's probably less of an issue later on, for a starting duplicant, that's probably just a bit too much of a handicap. So, and I wasn't overly sold on him. Actually, I think I probably do want a rancher to start with, because it can be quite difficult to get someone with skill in ranching early on, and as part of the all achievements run, the biggest limitation in that is there's a carnivore achievement that you have to get 400,000 calories of meat eaten within the first 100 cycles. And that is pretty much the only time-limited achievement. And it is a challenge to get to, even if you do sort of try to optimize everything. In the previous run, I managed to get to it at about cycle 92, and that was with a pretty heavy focus on it. So I'm thinking someone that's got ranching is going to be the goal to start with. Not necessarily purely ranching, and bottomless stomach, we definitely don't want a duplicant that eats double at the very start of this playthrough. So we'll just keep looking to see if we can find something that looks like a decent combination. ranching and supplying. So this guy could be the guy that, when he's not ranching, he just runs around making sure the machines have the being filled and things like that. He also has increased agriculture, so if we wind up getting him to do some farming later, decreased machinery, I think he's probably reasonable enough. And now, this isn't going to be the actual Overachievers run, but the actual Overachievers run I'll probably name Overachievers. But for now, we'll just call it the Ironic Pit, the Impenetrable Plucky League. Let's go with Plucky League. Nice random generated name. Now, it's generated up a random asteroid for us. And the random asteroid is... here we go. So this is the interface that you basically play Oxygen Not Included with all the time, and you start on the Terra planet called Earthino. You start with this fairly safe biome that has a fairly reasonable temperature. It's got some pockets of oxygen, and there's generally some oxalite here, which actually emits oxygen as well, meaning you don't immediately have to worry about oxygen. There's also a fair bit of algae around, and that algae can be converted into oxygen. And there's plants which we can use to provide food, and there is metal, so we've got copper here, and we've got coal. Now, if we take a look at the... I don't remember the hotkey for it. Oh, U. Okay. Nope, actually, that's not the one I want. E. Where is the colony summary? Oh, there. Okay. Now, if you take a look in here, there is all of the achievements that you can get, and all these ones with yellow are spaced out. I haven't even looked at them yet. But there is the super sustainable, generate 240,000 kilojoules of power without using coal, natural gas, petrol, or wood generators. Often, one of your earlier sources of fuel will be coal, but this really limits your ability to generate much in the way of power in the early game, and especially when you're combining with things like, as I said, carnivore. Have duplicants eat 400,000 kcal of critter meat before the 100th cycle. And there's also an achievement, locavore. Have duplicants consume 400,000 kcal of food without planting any seeds in planter boxes, farm tiles, or hydroponic farms. So basically those three achievements together do make it a bit of a challenge, because we can't just plant farms to tide us over until the meat's ready. The incubators that will speed up the growth of the eggs that the meat creatures make use up a fair bit of power, 240 kilojoules each, and so they will, or watts or whatever it is, so they will be limited by the fact we're not going to have easy power. And of course the primary goal of getting to 400,000 eaten. But we don't need to worry about any of that for the time being. For the time being, we need to, 1, get access to one of these water pockets, and 2, build some lavatories, build some beds, and get a little bit of sort of generic living area built out. So, let's get on that. We'll set this so that proximity is enabled. So if they're closer to a job, they will do that, as opposed to being determined by what was the first job that was given. At the moment, I'm just going for rapid expansion, and this is effectively a demonstration. I'm recording this episode for my channel as a demonstration of what Oxygen Included is like, and so it's not actually going to be a long-term base, but the goal will be an all achievements run when I play the actual series. I'm progressing through, we're just digging out a bit of space here to get access to, so that we can put in some wash basins, some toiletries, outhouses, and then we can dig a bit of space as well for beds. But the priority on the first run is always to get your toilets up and running, and you can also speed the game up, which I tend to generally run on 2 times speed, but it sort of depends on what the base is up to and how many jobs are going on. If you've got lots of jobs running everywhere, then you can you might run on fast speed. But if you're just sort of playing the game, then normal speed, medium speed is probably good enough. Slow speed can be useful if there's something particularly tricky that you're trying to do at the time. Let's put a pitcher pump in here. But here we go. So we are basically set up for, we're halfway through our first cycle. We've got both of our outhouses going in. We've got one wet wash basin for each of them, and we can actually set it so that they only use these wash basins when they're going to the left. So when they're leaving the lavatories, they will then swing by the wash basins in order to wash their hands, but on the way in, they won't do so. I'm just going to tell them to make that outhouse as a priority as well. And there we go. We've got water access, we've got the outhouses, we've got the wash basins. Apparently someone managed to get themselves stuck, so let's tell him to dig his way out. Joshua there was suffocating because somehow he had managed to fall into the water. Anyway, we've got our toilets made, so now we just need to make some space for some beds. If I continue that ladder straight up there, I'm going to run into that plant, which I'd prefer not to destroy all the plants that we've got sitting here at the moment. It's probably better to start with to actually use those plants as a source of food. We'll set them so that they can be harvested, and so this will get access to this oxygen here. It'll get this oxalite running as well, and then these various mealwoods, bristlebriars, etc. As they grow to fruition, they will become food that is accessible for our duplicates. So that will, in fact, no, if that's going to be the wall, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself really. I'm sort of planning out where the walls of the rooms and things are going to be, but that's probably less of a requirement at the moment. I, however, am just going to make a bit of space over here so that we can get some cots up and running so that the dupes have somewhere to sleep. Not generally something I make sure that I do on the very first run. On the, as I say, on the very first run, I make sure I get the toilets up and running, but the cots are much less important to have available for somewhere to sleep. They can sleep on the floor, and it just gives them a morale loss, but in the first couple of cycles, that's not too big of a problem. That said, I think we might actually manage to pull off getting the cots built in our first day here, which is uncommon, uncommon for me at least, but it looks like we're going to do it. Perfect, and we get our very first achievement within the first cycle, which is bed and bath. Have at least one toilet in the colony and a bed for every duplicate. Perfect. Now, we can't yet build doors because we don't have any copper, but here, once we do crack into this room, there's a bit of copper there that we'll be able to get access to. If we extend this room out a bit as well, there's some copper sitting there that we can grab. So there you go, duplicants are all having something to eat. Then they'll all go to the bathroom. Actually, I think they tend to go to the bathroom before they have something to eat. Let's look at the schedule. Yeah, like the first thing they tend to do in downtime is actually go to the bathroom. And then they'll all pop off to bed. And that's one cycle finished. And we're making a little bit of progress, but it will of course take time to get to more significant things. Now that we have the basics up and running there, what I'd like to do is I would like to actually be able to start researching. But again, building the research station requires metal as well. So we're currently limited primarily by the fact we haven't dug up any copper yet. There's not much else that we can do at the moment without getting some metal dug up. And so that's sort of going to be our priority. I think we just got a bit of metal. There we go. So we'll put a research station down. The research station is going to need power, so we'll put a battery down. And we'll put a manual generator so that we can actually generate that power. And then lastly, we actually want to run the wires through the floor here. But when they place those wires, they will actually dig up this dirt. And so at this point, we might as well get around to building the walls for this room and the floor, because the wires can run through the floor without issue, but they can't run through the dirt and sandstone. They'll dig up the sandstone and then the wires will just be sitting there exposed. And in fact, the manual generator and the battery... Why did he make a mess? I feel like they didn't use the toilets. Oh, because no one's actually done a dirt delivery to these outhouses. So they're not usable yet. That's a problem. That mess there is probably going to get into the water. And if that gets into the water, we've got a real problem. Oh, it's close. Okay, priority 9, clear these up. And then priority 7, deliver the dirt there. Okay, I think they have. They've delivered the dirt. So now the outhouses are actually usable. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. So this here's the floor. Definitely not the best thing to see is them making a mess. That's exactly why I prioritized making the outhouses so quickly, so that they would have somewhere to go rather than making a mess and potentially contaminating our water source. But it looks like they still managed to screw me over there. Meanwhile, we've got the research station going in. We also have access to the microbe musher here, which the microbe musher can make food out of water and dirt. It's definitely not the best food, but it's an option when we're limiting ourselves to not growing farms. We may potentially need to use that. We've got all these various oxalites producing more than enough oxygen for our duplicants. And so, for the time being, we don't have to be all that concerned. But we will need to build a better oxygen supply fairly soon. In the meantime, though, we're just sort of excavating out an area, getting things up and running. If we put doors on our latrine and our barracks here, then that will actually make these into rooms. If we take a look here, the room overlay, we don't have any rooms. But as soon as that door went in, we now have a barracks here, which gives all of these duplicants a morale bonus when they sleep in this area. Over here, we don't have a room, but it will become a latrine, which will give a morale bonus when the duplicants come in and use this area. All you need is a toilet and a wash station and no industrial machinery. Well, we've got that. We've got a outhouse for a toilet, and we've got a wash basin as a wash station. So that's, boom, there you go. That is now generating a morale bonus, +1. And over here, morale bonus, +1. So the dupes will become more happy from using these rooms. And over time, you get more and more bonuses and things like that to increase their morale. Now, let's see. So we've got access to various plants. We've got some oxalites generating the oxygen that we need. We've got toilets, and we've got a few beds. What we might do is we might just tell them to build another bed in preparation for the next duplicate that's going to show up. And we'll take a look at actually getting some research started. So you've got a whole research tree here, and obviously over time you research more and more, but to start with, I think the priority is probably going to be to work here on advanced research, which will get us access so that we can progress into any of these researchers that have this purple symbol. We don't have another priority at the moment, so I think that's where we'll work towards to start with. And meanwhile, we'll just work on excavating more and more area, and I don't think we're in a particular rush to get to these different teleporters and neural vacillator and such, but over here you can see there's this abyssalite. If we give them a job to dig that abyssalite, you can see that they aren't able to dig it. And so that is a sort of a border to how far we'll be able to dig at this stage. There's also other rocks like granite here, which we're not going to be able to dig through as well. Up here we've got a cold biome. Over here there's a warm biome. And then there's a fair bit of sort of warm biome as well. So once we crack into those areas, we will have more difficulty with temperature. I do notice we've got 2 idle duplicates, so let's tell them to dig out a bit more space. And we'll basically create another room down here in preparation for using it for another function. Meanwhile, we can temporarily dig out this area and make a room on top as well. And then that will allow us to get rid of the ladder here that's running through the roof. And do we have any plants here? I don't think we've got any actual plants here. I think that must have only been muckroot, and muckroot basically is single use. It doesn't keep regrowing. So, yep, there we go. We're digging out a space down here. You've got all of these pockets here, which is a buried object. Often that buried object will be a hatch, but it can also be muckroot and a few other things. But sort of digging towards those will allow us to get the hatchlings, the hatches. The hatches are our first meat source, and once we get the hatches and start ranching them, that's how we will be able to generate an infinite supply of meat. And obviously an infinite supply of meat is going to be a requirement in order for us to get the carnivore achievement that I pointed out before. I might just turn this up to fast speed, just because at the moment we're just waiting on them to excavate. Also, this layout that I'm using here, not generally the final layout that I would tend to use, but it's sort of useful for doing a bit of quick, rapid expansion. And there we go. So every 3 cycles we get another printable available at the printing pod. This will have 4 options. It's going to have 3 duplicate options and then a care package. So at the moment, we probably could use another duplicate because it will help to increase the amount of jobs that we can get going. But we don't want to accept every single duplicate every single time because it can become very unmanageable, particularly the food requirements. Early on, accepting duplicates every single time is quite a problem for your food capability. And so if there's no one here that's particularly good, or if they've all got terrible negative traits, then we might take the care package. But let's see. So this guy can do building, doctoring, researching. We don't generally need doctoring anytime soon. Researching, we've already got a researcher. This guy here, he has a stat in farming, but he's also a plant murderer who gets -3 to his farming stats. Okay, really? And then this guy over here, he can do tidying, he can do a bit of researching as well. He does suit wearing, which is not generally something we need to do at this early stage. And he's got increased construction, he's got decreased strength, so he can't carry as much. And he has a decreased decor, so he gets negative morale just automatically. So I think actually at this point we probably do wind up taking the care package. We possibly could consider taking Marie here. She does have a small bladder, she can't cook, but she otherwise is sort of nothing special, so we might wind up taking her. But that said, I will be back in just a moment. I need to go collect something from the door. And after thinking about it for a little while, I think I am just going to grab Marie and we'll get another duplicate up and running. Now, one thing brand new duplicates get is they always start with a skill point. Whereas normally your skill points you have to gain experience in order to get those skill points. This guy here, Joshua, our digger, he's been pretty much digging the whole time he's existed for 2.5 cycles now, but he's still only about halfway to his first skill point. Whereas Marie here, she already has a skill point available. And the skill points do lock various abilities. So for example here, research, supercomputer usage is locked behind research. Up here in hard digging, very firm material mining. Abyssalite mining is there under super hard digging, which is the second tier of digging. And before, the abyssalite is what was stopping me from digging through here. So by getting the skills, you get access to further things, further abilities. Supercomputer, that's what we're researching towards at the moment. It's that purple research. But once we get that research, we still won't be able to we can build the supercomputer, but no one will be able to use it until someone at least has that first tier of researching. But for the time being, I think that Marie's priority is probably going to be, let's just give her a point of building, make her better at building. Now, one thing you might notice is the morale requirements. So this guy here, he's got 4 morale because he's, a duplicate just gets 1 automatically. New Hope, which I think is because it's a new base, they get an extra 1. 2 shift break gives them a point. They used the latrine, gives them 1 point. They slept in a barracks, gives them 1 point. But they ate a grisly meal, which loses them 1 point. But he doesn't have any morale requirement either. But Marie here, we've just taught her to do the construction skill. And so that gives her a morale requirement. Generally, the morale need is pretty much that that you've taught them skills. And as you go deeper, so if I gave this skill, that would give her a 2 extra morale requirement, and then this skill would give her a 3 extra morale requirement for a total of 6. So as you go deeper, they have an increasing morale requirement, and so you need to do things like making everything look nicer with decor. You need to increase the quality of the food that they're eating and things like that. But for the time being, and you can also allocate them hats for things that they've been allocated skills. They can get a nice little hat, and so there we go. She now has her improved construction hat on with a pencil sticky taped to the side. And we've got our research. We can make a water cooler. Cool. If we pop into furniture, water cooler, we can throw a water cooler into this general printing bot area, and that can be where our duplicates go to relax when they don't have any jobs to do. Also, now that we have this ladder over here, we don't need this one breaking through the roof, and so we can actually build our roof there and free up a bit of floor space. looks like Ren's already eating, and then he'll go use the toilet as well. And Marie doesn't even need to use the toilet because she has been printed so recently. But she does have a small bladder, so she probably will need to go at some point during the next day. And let's build that piece of roof now that that piece of oxalate is gone. Perfect. And then we probably can work on... At the moment we don't actually... What speeds up the conversion of polluted dirt into polluted oxygen. Okay. One thing we can do, you can see here the oxygen is getting a bit thin. So if we pop a oxygen diffuser down here, then that oxygen diffuser connected to the power and give it algae, and it will produce oxygen out of that algae. We've got, if we take a look here, where's our resources? Diagnostics resources. Ah, there you go, seal. If we look here at our algae, we've got 3 tons of algae sitting there. So that will, and if we click there, it shows up here in our quick bar, so that we can always keep an eye on our algae as we're consuming it with the oxygen diffuser to make oxygen. But now that we've got a room set up here which we could use for something. We don't currently really have anything to use that room for. Maybe we could use it as a crafting station, because we will probably want some oxygen masks, and that's probably something that we'll be researching towards in just a moment. We've got polluted oxygen here and slime, which we don't want the duplicates breathing in that slime. We've got hydrogen and chlorine, which they can't even breathe, and so as we get access to more and more of this space outside of our base, we probably want them to be wearing oxygen masks. So let's work on that. Let's make a crafting station, and we'll put that here, and we'll give that a power line as well. And you can see here the oxygen diffuser is running and produces oxygen using algae to produce oxygen. Perfect. That research is completed, so now we can build a supercomputer. And in fact, we can also make a skill scrubber, which allows us to reset all of the skills that we've allocated for a duplicate. And we've even got access to our first step of rocketry. We've got the telescope. The telescope allows us to explore the star map and see what's going on with the unknown objects that we want to travel to in the miniverse, the universe that we've got here, and get access to additional resources that we don't currently have access to on our initial base here. But in order to get the telescope up and running, we'd have to actually get all the way up to space. Which, arguably, if we just tell them to build a ladder there, that will get us to space. But it will do two things. One, space will vent all of the oxygen and atmosphere that we've currently got. And two, asteroids actually fall down in the space area. So they produce mass. They also produce a lot of heat when they crash down. Let's have a look here. So the crafting station doesn't have any jobs. It can't do anything at the moment. But if we take a look and try to find, let's zoom out. There, okay, oxygen. There is here an oxygen mask pattern. So if we research that, then we will be able to make some oxygen masks in the crafting station here, which will allow us to explore areas that currently... Uranium. Uranium was not in the base game that I used to play, so that's interesting. It generates radiation. You can use it for nuclear energy. It can be run in rad bulk generators, uranium centrifuges to make enriched uranium, radiation lamps, hives. Yeah, okay, so that looks interesting. Something to play around with for sure once we get access to it. I given that we're just trying to get to space, well, we actually can't, because we can't break through there. We can't break through this abyssalite up here. And so I don't know whether we'll be able to get to space by going this way. But for the time being, that's pretty much the wrapping up point for this episode anyway. As I said, I think Oxygen Not Included is a game that I'm going to want to do a full playthrough. And probably what I would do is aim to do about 10 cycles. So about double as far as I've done today. But yeah, about 10 cycles per episode, with each episode being about 35 minutes or so. So condensing down what's happening, and basically less of this just waiting while they dig out spaces and we're waiting on them to dig the ladder to do that research, not currently actually doing anything with a real purpose at the moment. And so probably it's just something where I would aim to, as I say, do about 10 cycles per episode, and sort of progress over over the series into various tiers of research and abilities and all of that lovely stuff, colonizing multiple planets, getting infinite renewable resources, and yes, all sorts of fun. It's a cute game, it's enjoyable, but it is definitely one that I like to progress through. And as I said, I previously have tried to do a all achievement run that got ruined, and so the goal will be to do another all achievement run, including learning the spaced out DLC. So, thank you for watching. Stay happy and healthy, and I hope to see you in the next one.